listening to One, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning.
Hi.
Hey.
Is this happening now?
I think this is happening now.
Okay, I'm ready.
What are we drinking this week?
I've committed myself to learning to like seltzers.
Hard seltzers, folks.
Yeah.
The only kind of seltzer that really matters.
Well, isn't that what Le Crouton is?
LaCroix is not a hard seltzer. It's just seltzer.
I know it's not a hard seltzer.
Yeah.
You said seltzer.
It's a flavored sparkling beverage.
Is that a seltzer?
Naturally flavored. I think so. I don't know. Now you put me on the spot. Well, I drink a lot of LaCroix, that's for sure. But today we're trying these truly
Lemonade.
seltzers.
They're good.
Yeah,
I like it so
they're
far.
tasty. It's very summery feeling to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we decided to stop dancing around the topic.
That you don't want to talk about?
It's hard to want to talk about what's going on in the world right now because it's depressing, and we like to use this podcast as an avenue for doing something fun in the middle of depressing things sometimes, or just, doing something fun in general. But
we have to just admit that
we decided to kind of address this, and we hope a helpful way to teachers and students. We're going to talk a little bit about teaching and learning during this COVID-19 national emergency kind of global pandemic thing. So we're going to kind of talk about just a lot of useful and helpful things and like innovative, cool stuff that has popped up and ways that school districts and universities and education professionals of all kinds and learners and families are all dealing with confronting education that is not happening in a school building. Because it's kind of an interesting and unprecedented event that we're witnessing right now in schools. So, where are we now? What's the state of things?
Things are not great.
States across the country, about how many of them have
42.
42 are just what?
Well, 42 have extended their school closure through the remaining of the school year, whatever that might have been, by state.
So 42 states at this point in the year have decided they're not going back.
They're not returning for the 2019-2020 school year.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I think Montana is trying to go back next week.
Yeah, I read the governor up there was like, "Oh, you guys can decide on your own when you want to go back."
Yeah, it was a little more.
Mm-hmm. They're very freedom loving up there in Montana land.
I respect it.
It's one of the most beautiful states in the union, but they do have some politics.
I don't really know anything about their leadership as far as what this would be like.
Yeah. The governor up there in Montana has decided that it's okay to let school districts decide when they want to go back.
Yeah.
Which is a little maybe risky. We're not sure how this is all going to play out. I'm kind of predicting that things are going to open too quickly because people are itching to get back to work. Understandably, people want to get back to their normal lives, which totally makes sense. Everybody wants to get back to their normal lives. But I think what's probably going to happen is we're going to do that too quickly. We're not going to do it cautiously enough, and people are not going to.
I don't know what Montana's numbers are like either.
Well, there are like 12 people in all of Montana, so maybe that's
they can probably go back to school with the 3 of them that go to school.
Don't they have one? I think they have one representative.
I think
that's right. Or is that
right.
Wyoming? Is there more than one? How many represent? Let's see. Oh my gosh, it's that guy. That guy who punched a reporter or whatever.
I don't know who this guy is for some reason.
Gianforte or however you say his name. Yes, they have. Okay, yes. Montana has one representative in the House of Representatives. So it's a very small place.
It's very hard to fathom.
For such a big place, it's a really small place population-wise.
It's represented, yeah. True.
They're represented by that guy who I'm pretty sure punched a reporter. I think that's that guy.
Do some more work before we throw that out there.
We can speculate wildly on this podcast, right? We're not purporting to be news.
This is my favorite thing we've done. What if that dude's just really decent and one of our only 4 listeners in Montana who's like, guys, I've been just supporting you since the beginning. I didn't punch a reporter.
Yeah. Election Eve assault on journalists.
Okay.
In his Wikipedia entry.
Heck that guy then.
Ben Jacobs, a political reporter for The Guardian, was covering the election, reported to Gallatin County, Montana Sheriff's Office that Gianforte had assaulted him at the guy's Bozeman campaign office after Jacobs asked him a question concerning healthcare policy. Because, I mean, we all get really mad about
Who doesn't want to punch
healthcare
someone?
policy. Jacobs said that Gianforte body slammed him
Okay, that's not punching.
to the floor. Body slammed him to the floor and broke his glasses.
I'm no longer taking up for this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gianforte, that we are covering your misdeeds. There's a picture.
Like he's got bigger problems in coverage than us.
He is a representative right now in the House of Representatives in Congress, and I'm looking at his mugshot on this Wikipedia page. Okay.
Oh, he
anyway,
got arrested for body slamming.
he got booked.
He got booked
For assault.
This is my favorite thing. I mean, not for him.
He
but,
also apparently made misleading statements to the sheriff's office. Anyway, this is a digression, but we are talking about Montana, and they're a freedom-loving place, and which is okay. It's okay to love freedom and personal liberty. That's fine. But what is happening is probably going to be happening in a lot of places. They're opening up because they want to get back to work, and they're opening up schools at schools' discretion.
And everyone are being extremely pressured as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on governments, state governments, and the federal government to reopen things right now, which, again, makes sense from an economic perspective, might not make as much sense from a global pandemic perspective, but we just don't know yet. Mm-hmm. But my prediction is that we'll open things too soon and everything will blow up again and we'll be back in quarantine, which will make me very sad because I want my summer. So anyway, that's where we are. People are trying to figure out, most schools in most states have closed for the rest of the year.
Ohio just closed last week.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been in the news for us. And Columbus has had quite a few protests as well regarding Governor DeWine, and that's been sort of interesting to watch unfold. But it's really put a lot of pressure, on all kinds of people, obviously, but especially on the education system.
Yeah. I remember
what it looks like.
I remember you were talking about how some of your school leadership, you know for a fact that they're just stressed to heck right now.
Gosh, yes.
I can't imagine trying to manage a school district right now. Just the amount of outreach that districts that are shut down are trying to do with parents and students, and how there's this kind of there's this totally unprecedented coordination of tech infrastructures that never had to happen before, that just had to happen instantaneously.
I think that's where we see that's just it. Like, there's such a big push in education to have technology. So we are swimming in technology as far as it's concerned. Like, at least in my district, I'm very lucky to have the support for technology. But it's a completely different story to support technology learning outside of a classroom around the clock.
Right. And it's one thing when all your kids can hook in their Chromebooks to the little designated storage container at the end of class and make their way to their next class.
Literally see them.
Totally another thing when you have to manage who has access to devices that can be typed on and who has internet access. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the challenges that districts and you personally have been facing.
The first thing that I've seen was that, so the week that we left, it was before St. Patrick's Day. There had been like rumors and talks about what Governor DeWine was going to do. He had not declared anything, but we had a staff meeting, and the staff meeting, our principal and our superintendent were both in there, and they were just sort of like, think about what you would do. And it was very like far off. It felt like this weird thing that it was like a plan D.
Think about what you would do if schools closed.
Yeah, like how would we function?
Sure.
And then it was like a couple weeks. And so I left the meeting and I was like, oh, that's a weird thing. And I was telling people, like my parents and like other people, like I couldn't believe we were talking about it because I never thought it was possible. And so I didn't really do all that much work in those few days leading up to it because I didn't know it was happening.
Yeah.
And then Thursday I left school. He called it off. So I had Friday with my kids and that was it. But in that time, our district was able to put together a survey to say, okay, who has internet access? Who has a device that they could work on? And so we did have those numbers pretty early on. And the numbers were low, like very low for our school size.
Students who did not have internet access, the numbers
it was
were low.
Less than, I think, 20, we could say confidently.
Right.
But so we left thinking, okay, our kids have access. Sure, they might have internet, but then what came to light was like what does internet in rural Ohio look like for some people? And
technically you have internet, but does it really work really well?
Yeah,
No.
like, can you stream a video?
The ISPs around here, the internet service providers, are reliably terrible, and they should be put out of business. They really should. Spectrum internet is just horrible. People cannot count on reliable internet service from that ISP. But anyway, I have a big problem.
But a lot of kids left.
Yeah.
Feeling sure and confident that they would have the resources at home to do it. And then when you get this video to watch, or you have to call on Zoom, whatever it might have been.
Or if your parents are trying to use the internet.
Yeah, if somebody's working from home and we have one laptop.
Like, they have a bandwidth intensive job.
Sure.
And you only have rural Ohio internet. Suddenly the internet you thought you had is not really the internet you need to get your work done.
Yeah. So I left feeling pretty confident, I guess, is the only word I can keep using. But I felt sure that, most of my kids could and would. And then the longer we've been out and now that we're not returning, it's just become so much more obvious how limited some of these opportunities are for some of our kids. And just like what that means for a family with 4 kids. How do we share?
Yeah.
Where do we,
Some of the other challenges you were talking about is the district is trying to figure out how to service kids with IEPs and 504s and disabilities, all kinds of challenges that are able to be met because they, in a school building, you have resources and places and, people on the ground to confront kind of confront that kind of educational environment. How do you service someone who is supposed to be having an aide with them basically every minute of the day to help them learn because they have some sort of whatever, either disability or issue that prevents them from accepting information the same way other people do? How do you service people like that who are stuck at home?
That's a question that I think people are still trying to figure out the
How do
answer
you service people who split homes between mom and dad or divorced?
That's the one I've had a lot. Oh, I'm going to mom's and she doesn't have internet. Or, I'm with
Or
auntie.
my homework is at dad's. Or
I've heard that one.
The computer is shared and I don't get to share it. All kinds of interesting challenges that have popped up. And I know that you all in your staff meetings have been talking about how to best deal with some of these issues, but we don't have good answers for what happens when a kid just falls off the radar and they're not coming to school anymore every day.
And this isn't just my school either. Like, these questions and these answers are not only our problem.
What is your responsibility as a teacher, or not you personally, but as a school district? What is your even legal responsibility to a kid who just is not responding to any of your, online teaching stuff or anything? You're trying to reach out to parents. Nobody's, what is it legally? What are you?
Some parents are hard to catch too, and they don't want to be reached. A lot of them. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but we get all kinds of emails and phone numbers that go nowhere. So some of them don't really want us to try to chat with them about what's happening either. So that's another problem.
All kinds of new and weird challenges and issues that have come to light that people didn't really have to spend a lot of time thinking about before now.
Yeah. And why would we?
Yeah.
Why would we ever, when writing an IEP 504 or just my day-to-day, why would I ever think, you know what, I should probably plan for a once-in-a-century event? How will I take my stuff online? Like, nowhere in college was it ever like, what might happen? That was never
a global pandemic.
Yeah, like, even like doomsday scenarios were not that.
Talk a little bit, if you would, because I know this has been a very fraught topic for online teaching, about grading policies and how
the state of Ohio has left it open to district decisions. So there are districts that I know of that are doing pass-fail for the 4th 9 weeks, which essentially means it's not a letter grade. It's just either you did it or you didn't. There's no in between. There are schools giving letter grades up to the teachers, based on what they believe is fair and reasonable. There isn't anything there hasn't been, I should say, anything explicitly written by DeWine and the Ohio Department of Ed yet to kind of say this is exactly, like, it doesn't seem like they're going to come out with a blanket that says this is how all public schools are going to grade. So they've left it kind of up to us, which is good and bad. Part of me wishes that the state would have just said everyone's doing it this way, so we're all consistent, like as a state for public high schools. But at the same, I mean, I understand why they would want to give, the opportunities.
I think that would be impossible to do anyway, because some courses, even in a normal course load at a normal time of the year, might be pass-fail, and some might be grade-based.
Right.
So.
And I think, I understand that, but part of me wishes that there was a way to say, this is how we're going to, you know what I mean? Just to, because it's tricky. It's very tricky. And, my admin has been supportive in how we do the grading, which I'm very thankful for, but some of these decisions are hard to make when you've never had to be put in this situation before. And so I feel like I'm doing the best I can, but I still feel like, is this fair? Is this reasonable?
Right.
Is this what's right? And that's good. I think teachers should be struggling with these things because I want to make sure I'm doing the best I can, but part of me just wishes they were like, this is what we're going to do. And I'd be like, great, let's do that.
So that because some of these decisions, they might seem like they're just kind of another small decision.
No, some are high stakes for students.
Yeah, some of them are high stakes, especially for graduating seniors, and for other students who are, trying to manage college applications and scholarships and all kinds of things like that. There are things that are sort of the normal way that things have always been done in terms of how to do college admissions based on grades that are just going to have to be kind of suspended for this.
Well, and like one of the best
class.
examples of that is, okay, for a senior, right? If they get a pass fail, let's say, and it's a P, so they pass the class, that would affect their overall GPA. That might change the standing of them being, allowed into a certain program at a university they want to attend next year. So these are the things that kind of have to come into play as far as like what we're thinking about, like if it's reasonable or not. It's a sticky wicket, as you would say. It's a very sticky wicket.
Bit of a sticky wicket. Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't think there is one. I don't think we should go searching for the one right answer because I think every single classroom is going to look different.
Yeah. How do you as a teacher feel about the sort of general effectiveness of moving your curriculum to this online, remote, sending packets back and forth through the mail sometimes, all this kind of stuff? How do you feel about how does it feel to you?
I miss my kids. I miss like the day-to-day. I miss my routine. I'm sure they do too. I've been hearing from a lot of them. They're overwhelmed, because the reason that I think sometimes public education like this works for students, especially in a high school, is that when they come to my room, we've got 47 minutes of just English. So like that's our block of the day. And now they're being left all this free time and there's no constraints, so to speak, of like, this is my English time or whatever. So I think it's really hard. I don't think our kids have been built up in any sort of way to handle this successfully, if that makes sense. Like nothing about schedules of public schools has given them the support and structure they would need.
The ability to self-manage.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of interesting to me to think about the weaknesses this is exposing in the public school system that we could do something to fix. It's giving us a sort of unprecedented look into like these issues like you're talking about, like time management, apparently. We never would have known before because kids are either in school or not in school, you know? Now they're sort of in school, but sort of not in school. It's this weird in-between thing where they're expected to manage their own time.
But I have students who have turned in late work to me now with no extracurriculars, no nothing going on, who had never turned in something late before. And who were 2 and 3 sport athletes and who were in music or whatever was taking up their time. You know what I mean? And like they were able to somehow understand their role at school and at home and at whatever practice they had and like what that allowed them. But then now that all of these things have been sort of stripped from them, it's like, oh gosh, it's Tuesday and that was due yesterday. And I have to send Miss Day an email that's like, oh, this happened. You know what I mean? Like there's no, but I, it's hard for me to understand how, because in my mind, I'm like, what are you guys doing? I mean, they have jobs. They've got they're taking care of siblings. They're taking care of family members. They're providing a lot of them. But it's also hard to be like, how are you so successful in all of these ways with a much more strict schedule than what it feels now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing is that, like it does expose how schedules are good for students of that age, especially.
Yes, and me too.
Yeah.
Holy cow, I'm 30 and I need it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble keeping track of what day it is a little bit right now. You don't even have your regular markers that kind of indicate oh, it's the weekend now because, churches are closed. And
Yeah.
like, it's not like, oh, I went out on a Saturday night because it was a Saturday night or Friday night because you don't go out.
Yeah.
The only thing that's really regular in my schedule is like a Monday meeting. It's like it for
That's
me.
what
In
revolves
terms of
here.
remembering what day it is.
Is my Monday meeting today? No.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting to see those things because I've talked to other teachers to be like, this kid never turns in late work. And like, what is it now?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how things might be done differently in the future, how they might have been able kind of things we're innovating toward now and cool things that are popping up in response to the way that we are dealing with this now. Just like some hopes for the future, some hopes for what it could have been, for what it should have been.
I think first and foremost, we have to address the issue of internet connectivity being something that, I mean, it's essential to life. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting to a point where some of these families in all kinds of rural Ohio, I can't imagine some of them trying to work from home, let alone having to go to school from home. And some of them, that's their livelihood now. And that's probably really exposing some weaknesses in these connectivity issues. So I think that's something for the future that has to be thought about. How do we make internet access more reasonable and better coverage and affordable, all these types of things. I think that schools that aren't one-to-one on like a Chromebook right now, which means that every student would be
some sort
given
of
one
device that they can work on,
that they take to and from school. I think that schools might be considering those things more seriously now, because then we could guarantee if something happened that they at least had a school-issued Chromebook to take home to work on, and then it could be returned. Or like Columbus Public, I read about, is lending out their Chromebooks and Wi-Fi hotspots. So I think maybe that will also push for other districts, to think about.
To whom?
To their students.
They're lending out.
Columbus Public is lending out to some of their students who've inquired about it or said that they need the support. They've been lending out Chromebooks from the school with hotspots.
Yeah, I know that.
To try to encourage.
Some library systems have been stepping in to do some of that sort of thing too. Yeah.
So I think that we're going to see more things like that kind of take shape. I think we're going to see more schools pushing for closer to 1-to-1 ratios if they're not already. Like my high school, we're not 1-to-1, but we would probably be close. But we've never had to set up anything legally where we allow students to take these home and bring them back and the wear and tear and things like that. You know what I mean? Like when I was student teaching, we were 1-to-1 on the iPads, but there's insurance and things like that they had to pay to help cover the cost of the use.
Sure.
So I think that we're going to see a lot of schools looking into that kind of stuff.
Technology policies.
Yeah.
Probably, I would guess, changing internet policies. I know that we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, but some of your internet policies at your school are absolutely draconian about what you're allowed to look at, either for bandwidth reasons or just because somebody decided sometime that they didn't like something on some website and therefore nobody is allowed to look at it. That kind of stuff.
I don't think it's like a personal vendetta against the History Channel. It blocks the ad content.
Yeah, so sure. So like
crap ads or what?
Right. I mean, but I mean, all I'm saying is that I think that some of that probably will have to be re-examined. And maybe some of those restrictions will have to be, retooled because if the only learning you're doing is online, you gotta start to consider the trade-offs of protecting students from whatever content you think is harmful versus making sure that they are able to just learn in the best way that they can learn.
Yeah. I think the other thing we'll probably see, and this is something I've seen at my high school so far, we're going to see a greater push for more online learning during the school year so that we already have the habits and the usage and things like that sort of established and understood. Because like for my class, I've had Google Classroom for years. We do all kinds of things online. So moving my stuff online was pretty easy as far as it goes. But we had tons of teachers on our last couple of days going, help me set up a Google Classroom. Right. How do I get kids enrolled?
So it's somewhat easier for you because you'd already made the transition to doing some of the kind of I don't want to say it's just like the mechanics of how you would collect work. You moved some of that to your Google Classroom, right? So that's good. But I'm sure I know of just so many teachers. I mean, especially I'm thinking too at like the college level. We'll talk about colleges here in a little bit, but at the college level, I was reading about professors at Ohio State who just like you tell them they have to teach a class online and they just don't know what to do. I mean, Ohio State is an interesting example because some of them are, of course, going to be on the bleeding edge of whatever educational technology there is, but some of them are just old school professors who want to teach the way they've always taught, and it's hard to get a college professor to change the way that they do something.
It's the same for any teacher.
So,
it's not just professors who are hard to change. We're talking about, we've got teachers in my district right now who are, this is their last year before retirement.
Mm-hmm.
You think they want to make that transition? Like, it's not a matter of being, college professors aren't any more complicated to move online than I don't know.
Yeah, no, I just think they can be somewhat more loudly opinionated just by the nature of the job that they have versus like a public school teacher who is maybe not even in a union district or whatever. It's like you're in a slightly better position to advocate for what you want in one of those scenarios than another. But that's all I was thinking about. But yeah, the move for you didn't seem to be too difficult, but I imagine that there are plenty who were struggling with that because they hadn't already set themselves up to be online.
Yeah, it's ugly. I mean, but I'm learning a lot, and I've had to reach out to people to be like, I need to make a quiz on Google Forms, so what do I need to check and uncheck of these boxes so my kids aren't cheat, like, and I'm Google certified, so it's not, I don't know. It's not easy for anyone, no matter your age, no matter your exposure, no matter, I mean, it's just not easy. Mm-hmm. And I had to cut an entire unit that I would have gotten through by being in school with my kids.
Yeah.
So, like, we're all having to make these, and I mean, like, Ohio got rid of the testing, which would have been, I think, last week for me anyways, so that was a blessing, but...
Right, the 10th grade standardized tests are what you're
all of them.
Well,
yeah.
Right, but the ones that you teach.
Yeah, mine would have been 10th grade English, the only
10th
tested
grade
English.
Testing. Yeah, so Ohio just decided, hey, we're just not doing testing this year, which has down the road complications attached to it because it affects possibly graduation and graduation rates. It affects teacher evaluations because that's how that stuff is done at the state level. It affects, I keep thinking about the fact that this isn't just a problem that's gonna affect this year's graduating seniors. It's gonna affect every single student who is in the public school system. Mm-hmm. Until they graduate. They're going to have this weird semester on their grade cards to deal with. So this is going to be a problem that's going to last, at least how we deal with it administratively is going to last for 12 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not simple. I do want to hit just a little bit on colleges and universities and how they're dealing with this. I've been reading some kind of sad stuff about colleges that are even having to go so far as cease operations altogether, just closed down because
Urbana just closed,
right? Because of the lack of clarity on whether or not we're coming back in the fall for some of these places. The fact that they had to close down for this semester, it's a lot, and we already have really declining college student populations right now because of just the fact that the incoming college population is just smaller than it was when we were in school. Sure. So we've got that compounded with closures, and people, and some places just can't sustain all of that all at once, and they're just closing their doors.
Yeah,
I think colleges are generally better equipped to move people online because they have to do things like have technology infrastructure mandated already in most cases. And a lot of colleges we're doing probably online stuff even more aggressively than public schools were prior to now. So
most colleges I can think of were already offering some classes online.
Right.
So there wasn't a lot of, there was, don't get me wrong, but they already had some things established to allow for that.
Yep.
I just can't imagine, like, if colleges are virtual for fall semester or whatever it's looking like. I know we're going to get to that, but Ohio already has the problem of we have a lot of colleges. And so I think we're going to see fewer and fewer if this, takes much longer to sort of sort out,
I think we can go ahead and talk about, like, looking ahead. We noted on this earlier, but it kind of seems like there's a possibility that we open up too early and have to go backwards a step.
Well, colleges that I've been reading about, so like Ohio State and a few others, so we're talking about much, much larger public, obviously. They're sort of already addressing it as if prepare to think you might have to stay home and do another semester from wherever, not on campus. So another semester of online learning, which I think for a university that large and for other large universities and just any size university or college, I suppose, too. They have to be thinking about this with students and with I mean, we're talking about people who need jobs and things like that. Like, not only the people who work at the universities, but, you know, like college students, like, a lot of them get in on grants and whatever else with that they will work this many hours, or that they eat. Like, there's so many stipulations that I think it's good of them to be thinking that way. I hate to think about what another semester of this would look like, but I don't think it's wrong of them to start thinking. I guess.
Yeah. Do you in your district, are you having conversations about what if the fall semester?
I mean,
happen?
Governor DeWine has already sort of just said, you know, there's a chance.
We're thinking about it.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any way to rule it out. As far as like my specific district goes, I mean, we've asked and they've said, you know, we're trying to come up with a plan for that, but there's no, I mean, as far down as I am, I haven't heard anything more of interest than that. But I think that if teachers right now are going to say, we're going to be back at the fall just like we normally are, like, I don't think that's realistic right now.
Yep.
And it's not even May. And I don't think that's realistic in 3 months. I mean, I would like to go back and it'd be normal, but with the way that we can't have more than 10 people in a room, and who knows, it'll grow to 50 people in a room based on these steps. But like, what's a lunchroom going to be like? So those are the things I'm thinking about. And that applies to college living as well. We're talking about dorms full of hundreds and thousands of kids in some places. So I just don't see how it's possible unless there's, you know, a shot that comes out very soon or something.
Yeah, I just think we can't say right now what the course of this thing is going to do over the next couple months. I just don't think we know.
I agree. But it's not bad to plan, just in case.
Sure.
Or think about it.
Yep. Let's go down the list and sort of hit on some of the resources that you use and other ones that you've heard of that are useful. I just kind of threw together a list of things that I've heard of my colleagues and stuff like that talking about, or people online that I'm friends with, I suppose, too. The biggest one right now, I think, is Google Classroom and all things of the Google Suite for educators. It can do a little bit of everything, and they also just made Meet accessible for larger numbers, and so that's something that now, like, my school is a Google school. Meet is the video conference.
It's like their Zoom, it's like their group video conference. So that's something that's come out. And then Forms I mentioned earlier just briefly, but it's a really great way to create online tests and quizzes. And then Zoom, obviously, is the biggest one right now, even though everybody's they're full of privacy issues, maybe.
Yeah,
Zoom bombing.
There are some serious privacy concerns with Zoom. Zoom's scrambling to try to address them, but there have been all these other competitors that have popped up, Microsoft Teams, and I mean, I use Slack for work, and Skype, and Facebook has a new product out. Like, I don't think Facebook's privacy record is all that much better than Zoom's, quite frankly, but there are alternatives to that. So Zoom and competitors like it if you're interested in video conferencing technology. Like you were talking about Google Meet, again, you know, there's going to be privacy concerns with any of these major platforms.
There are. And I think that Zoom, not that I'm going to like take one for Zoom here, but like they really got thrust onto this national stage very quickly.
Yeah.
In a way that no one anticipated. So for them to have to come scrambling to talk about their privacy, any big video conferencing, anyone would have been scrambling in that moment.
Right.
So,
right.
There's another site that a lot of my coworkers talk about, and it's called Schoology. And every time I've talked to someone who has used it, they describe it as basically a Facebook, but for educators, as far as like running a classroom. It is something that I think you have to pay for after so much use, so that's something to think about. But Schoology has partnered up with, it looks like they can actually use like OneDrive, Google Drive, Khan Academy, Infinite Campus, like, so they've really branched out to kind of, attach themselves with all these other things educators are using. But I do have coworkers who use it who like it a lot better than Google Classroom. But like I said, never used it, can't vouch for it. Membean is my one true love of education.
Yeah, I talked about them before.
But they made it all free right now.
Fan.
They made everything free for educators.
That's great.
So they've been pushing to try to get out into more classrooms. It's one of the best vocabulary websites I've ever seen as far as usage and growth and things like that. And my kids, I think they would say that they don't like it, but they do. And every time we read a Membean word, they get excited and tell me it's a Membean word, which means it's working. So I'll take that as a victory. But Membean right now is free. So if you are especially 7 through 12 ELA, that's somewhere you should go.
English.
Yeah.
Language arts for our listeners.
Teachers pay teachers. I have a love-hate relationship with this website. I think that they can have some really great stuff. I do think that.
But I like the concept.
I like it.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that you can support teachers by buying things that actual teachers would use and not just whatever some random textbook has put out that's like, this goes with page 30. Like,
the concept is that teachers
create their own
plans
lessons
and other digital resources and put them online.
You can buy a unit, you can buy a chapter, whatever. You can literally find everything on there. But what's been happening, and this is kind of funny, but teachers will have been assigning TPT like assignments. And it usually, like, obviously on the bottom of whatever the website, or I'm sorry, on the handout, it'll say like who the credit goes to. Mm-hmm. So we've had students go on the Teachers Pay Teachers and buy the unit and get the answer key and start submitting the work after they bought the answer key.
That's a problem.
Yeah. But it's still a good website, and it's worth supporting other educators, and a lot of things you can find for free on there.
They gotta figure out a way to deal with that. That's a funny problem.
But you just have to use I don't even think you have to use like a school Gmail or like a school email to sign into it. Mm-hmm. I think it's just anyone can buy it, obviously. So kids will go on and anyways, okay. It makes me laugh. The next one is Remind. I've talked about Remind before, but it's an easy way to connect with students and parents very quickly over text that's not your cell phone number, and also tracks the replies and involvement of people in it. So it's very secure for teachers to have even one-on-one conversations. It's far less risky than like giving a teenager your cell phone number to text them.
Dangerous.
And Remind is free with a limited use. So I've never had to purchase more, but it can be, I'm pretty sure, expanded. Flipgrid is something that I just got introduced to, and it's a way to, our high school French class has been using it, and it's a way to create videos and post them and share them in a way that just your group is able to see them. And so some of the French students and the NHS students got to create little videos for teachers, and they posted on a Flipgrid, and they could share the link with us. So we could only see these certain videos by our students, and they were like to us. But the teacher that uses this was telling me that it's a way that they can kind of have, especially for French, obviously, conversations and discuss things and whatever. And it's a little bit less intimidating to try to talk on like a video conference call. It allows them as many opportunities as they need to record exactly what they want to say and then post it into a shared, space. So it's kind of cool. And then the last thing I'm going to plug is J.K. Rowling announced that the British read version of Harry Potter Book 1 is available for free on Audible right now. And so you can get on there and download it and listen to Book 1. And
in a very British way.
And that's important because the American version, we have a different speaker on our Audible for Harry Potter books. But Book 1 is available for free right now, which I thought was really incredible of J.K. Rowling to make sure happened. And it's just, who doesn't want to re-listen to or reread Harry Potter? So that's just a little one. But also in the notes for the show, on the website, you'll see I found a website today that was really great that broke it down to all kinds of online learning resources for free. And it's broken down between K through 5th grade and then 6th through 12th grade. So make sure you check that for more. But these are just a few of the, the big ones right now.
I'll stick that in the show notes.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you want to add about online learning that came to you after the fact that you feel strongly about?
I think that, again, like I was saying before, I think this has exposed some weaknesses that have been in our educational infrastructure for a while that we just it hasn't been a priority to deal with yet.
Sure.
That I hope moving forward will be more in the forefront of problems that we need to solve for students, especially the internet age. Having connectivity is, again, a big one for me. And like you said, it wasn't as big of a problem as you thought at first, but now it's proving to be a little bit more of a problem. So, you only had 20 people say they don't have internet, but it turns out actually the internet, quality of the internet is a really big deal for a lot of these services, especially video conferencing. You can't do video conferencing unless you've got significant bandwidth. You got to have, okay, you have the internet, but do you have enough of a plan that allows you to stream video? So that kind of thing, just making sure that I really think that internet connectivity is almost on the level of what should be protected as like a right.
That's kind of where I am as well.
Almost. Just because, in my mind, the way you get information in this age, there's so much, and again, there are a lot of dangers that come with it too. It's not like the internet is some sort of miracle fix-all thing, but But having internet
actually
access,
the opposite sometimes.
Right. But having internet access in this era is, I think, just a sort of fundamentally important
Mhm.
thing that opens up so many avenues to people
I agree.
that they should just have. You should just have that information at your fingertips if you want it. So anyway, that's been kind of my
No, I
main
was just
takeaway.
curious if you had anything else you wanted to toss in there, because I know it's really difficult, and there's
Yeah.
no
That's my problem with it, is that I haven't really been down in the trenches, so I can kind of just watch
Sure.
from the sidelines and be like, well, that was problematic, or that was great, or whatever.
This is bad.
But yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, and again, I can speak to some of the kind of the technical challenges of
Mhm.
internet stuff and things like that, because that's more my domain. But
Sure.
but I think that I think a lot of this just needs to be about supporting our teachers and our students right now, and
I agree.
relaxing
Well,
restrictions and other
and
kinds
teachers
of
are
things.
doing a great job,
Mm-hmm.
and parents are doing a great job. Everyone's trying. Man, I've read so many posts recently about parents, people I know, people I don't know, just being like, I'm quitting homeschooling.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how hard it would be to have multiple, even one, but definitely multiple kids at home to try to, tackle this with, especially if you're working from home or you're not getting paid, whatever, right? But man, like we're trying to make that gap as small as possible.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. Like the gap to next year is larger already than it has ever been before, essentially.
Yep.
And we're just trying to bridge it. We're trying to make sure the seniors are ready to be whatever they are going to be next, and that the rest of them coming back to us are in a good place to, be as successful as possible.
Yep.
And that's hard.
It is.
So fill in the blank time.
Oh yes, fill in the blank. Our new favorite portion of the show.
We've been sending out stickers.
We have been sending out stickers to our listeners who are writing in hello@1601.com. The answers. We have a competition between a couple of our most dedicated listeners to try to see who can get in the right
They would be flattered to hear
answer
that.
the questions first. It's been fun to watch that. But we realized last episode, we realized we didn't tell you the answer to the questions that we were asking, and we should probably do that if we're going to do a question and answer thing. So we're going to do that. from now
Probably.
on.
Maybe
Make
we'll
sure
think
that
about it.
We're going to make sure we answer the previous episode's question in the next episode. So we have two to catch up on from that first time. The first question that we asked about was about the YMCA. We asked what the year was, the year of its founding, and in what country it was founded. And that was
1844 in England.
1844 in England. For whatever reason, I always thought the YMCA was an American thing, probably because of the song. I don't know. But yeah.
The Village people really did that to you, didn't they?
I think they did. And
Okay,
then-
last
Yes.
episodes
Yes.
was about Shakespeare
Yes.
and the name of his acting company. So what was it?
That was the acting company he belonged to for most of his life, and that was called the King's Men. That was the name of the acting company, the King's Men.
And this week, we went back and did a little research because this distance learning has been going on a whole lot longer than we thought it had.
Yeah.
This actually shocked me because I was Googling it just to be snarky. And then I was like, what am I reading?
Yep.
So this week, the question is, in 1892, this American institution became the first to offer correspondence courses. So what was that American institution? I thought you had something really...
I thought I was going to say
Spicy.
something.
You
I
go
thought I
with
was
that.
going to say something really cool, but I didn't.
Same. That's me in the classroom every day.
Correspondence courses.
That was almost really cool.
The end. I had something brilliant in my brain, and then it just died.
Okay.
All right, so what did we learn this week?
I'm going to let you start, but I'm going to jump in.
Oh, okay. You want to talk about
Because
what I learned
wanted
week?
this one.
Yeah, we watched a really great French film called Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
It's on Hulu.
It is on Hulu. It just
You can rent it on YouTube.
recently came out. Yep.
It'll be out June 20 something on DVD, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
23rd maybe.
It's really good though. I'm a sucker for French films because I like sad, very beautiful things, and that's what the French are known for. I don't know. I mean, it's sad and beautiful, and you can't argue with that. But I'm getting a look right now. But anyway, so this is
Okay, Toby.
I don't want to. Yeah, we're watching The West Wing, and I get compared to Toby a lot because I'm a grumpy grouch. I really don't want to give away too much of what happens
Ugh,
in the film,
so good.
but it is very good, and it's just it's visually quite stunning.
The colors are just... I want to take that whole palette and repaint my house.
Right. I think probably special attention was paid to that, the composition of a lot of those shots, especially those outdoor ones, because it's about a painter. So I think there's a lot of
And there's not a lot of
attention paid to
music,
detail.
but the music that is just... It's in the top 10 movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm already tossing it up there, and I haven't stopped thinking about it in like 4 days.
It's a great film. So other than just learning about that film and enjoying it, one thing that I picked up on after the fact when we were doing some reading about this is that, and this is something to watch when you watch through the film, but there are two main characters in it, and without giving a lot away, they become close, but they don't until the very, very, very end of the movie. They're using the formal vous in French to address one another. The very, very end of the movie, they switch to toi. One of them says return toi to the other one, and it's this kind of thing that we don't have in English, but that exists in a lot of other languages, about having this formal address and informal address, and switching from one to the other is a kind of momentous event that only happens in languages that have that kind of thing attached to them. So it was a really cool moment. Learned about it. Really enjoyed the film. Definitely watch it. It's not something to sit and watch with your kids because it's a little bit PG-13ish.
Don't
but
do that. It's more than PG-13.
Okay,
don't do that.
Maybe R-rated probably.
There's nudity, so just don't.
Yeah, I guess there is nudity. I forgot about that. But so just keep that in mind. But it's a great film. We really enjoyed it.
Chelsea had a little bit of an edge on me because she isn't fluent in French, but she understands it. Wouldn't you say? How much? Like, what percentage of that movie did you get without reading the subtitles?
I took a lot.
Because I was at like 0% without subtitles.
Yeah,
so.
I took a lot of French in high school and took some French in college, and I could understand. I'm at this point in my life, I've forgotten how to speak most of it, so I would struggle if I were stranded in France somewhere. But I can still understand a lot of it when I hear it. So I mean,
So you had that going for you,
right?
And I
understand
didn't.
a lot of the things without having to look at the subtitles, so that was nice.
Yeah, because I was like reading the whole movie.
Right.
But I messaged the French teacher at my high school, and I was like, oh my gosh, because she loves this kind of stuff. And I was like, we watched it, all of this. And she sent me an article about that, what you just described. And I was talking to Chelsea, and she was like, yeah. And I was like, I didn't get that because I can't hear it. So
yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. But so beautiful. And even though I don't speak a lick of French, it was still incredible. So well worth it.
Yeah. And what did you learn this week?
I'm going to do just kind of a local shout out, if that's okay, for what I learned this week.
Sure.
My hour, I'm going to go ahead and say it's yours now too. One of our favorite bookshops is called The Book Loft. It's in Columbus, Ohio. And it's a great, not small, it's like 32 rooms, 33 rooms. And
it's sprawling.
It's ridiculous. It's in the German Village. It's one of our favorite places to stop and get lost in for hours because that's how you have to maneuver through it. But anyways, they're obviously closed. And we're trying to support local. And although I do love my Amazon and everything else, I'm trying not to buy books from Amazon right now because I'm trying to support these places. So if you're looking for a great deal, the Book Loft has on their website an option to buy what's called the Malamarcus box. And you pay a flat rate and they ship it to you. And in the notes, you just tell them a little bit about what type of reader you are. And then they put together a box of, equal value, essentially. They send you a tote, like a tote bag. And they mail it to you. And so yesterday, Chelsea and I, we got our first one. We kind of split it a little bit. And I got 2 really exciting true crime books that I can't wait to read. And a couple of young adult literature books that I can't wait to read and try to tell my students about. And Chelsea got, what was yours?
I said I liked philosophy and science fiction stuff. And
you got that Good Omens.
Yeah.
That one looks
kind
cool.
of fantasy, science fiction, and philosophy is what I asked for. They sent Good Omens. It's not Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, it's an Amazon TV show right now.
Yeah, it's a TV show. They're turning it into a TV show. But they also sent, I have a bunch of versions of Plato, but this one was really cool because they sent me, the philosophy request, they sent me like a pocket edition of Plato's collected works, but it was edited by Scott Buchanan, who is one of I didn't even know this existed before they sent it to me. So he's one of my intellectual heroes. He's the founder of my college, among other things. So that was kind of a cool and unexpected little surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I got I and Thou, Martin Buber, and a couple of other books that I hadn't heard of before. Yeah, it was called Alice. It's about kind of a play on Alice in Wonderland. I can't remember the other one. I think Zeros and then one other.
I can't remember.
Yeah, anyway, they look really cool, kind of science fiction, fantasy stuff, and I'm excited to check that out.
So anyways, if you're looking for some books for the quarantine, for the summer, whatever, I would recommend getting on the Book Loft's website or their Facebook or their Twitter to get that link. Go to their site. Now, you can buy books directly from them, and not buy this box. But this box was a really cool way to support them, and it got us probably some books we wouldn't have picked up on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was well worth the price. So it's a good way to support local for sure.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I think that's it. That's a wrap.
Okay. See you next time.
Next time. Bye.
Bye.
Listeners, thanks for supporting 16 to 1.
We're trying to grow our audience, so please check us out at 16to1.com, all spelled out, and tell your friends about the show.
On our website, you can find links to follow us on social media, an archive of all our old episodes, and a contact form where you can get in touch.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next show. This is episode 9.